is up, everyone? I'm Scratch. Welcome to another Etheria restart video. Hope you guys are having an amazing day. In today's video, guys, I want to talk about the best damage dealers in Etheria restart. Which ones should we prioritize in terms of building first? Which ones will give us the more utility overall? Because there are a lot of damage dealers in the game, and a lot of them are actually really good. Before we get into that, I just want to give a massive shout out to Etheria Restart for sponsoring the video. If you guys want to try out the game, click on the link in the description down below and come and join us in the Celestials. We have tons of different guilds active for casual players, hardcore players, pretty much everything that you might be looking for. You can join our Discord by clicking the link in the description. That being said, guys, I have quite a few of them built. I only have one of them that is fully maxed in terms of lattice investment. I am missing a very important damage dealer on my account, and that is Yali, an LD unit, which unfortunately I do not have yet. And I recently pulled Chloros as well, but lack of resources and all that stuff, you guys know how it goes. I do not have the lattice to basically build him up as well. But I will get to him at some point. My next priority at the moment is Batsby, because Batsby can absolutely demolish Aurora. And I'm going to talk about the damage dealers, guys, based on the general content. If we are going to go to a website in a second, you're going to see basically they have kind of like some testing and the best damage output and all that, which I think is not really relatable to what actually happens in the game, okay? Without a doubt, from my point of view, the best damage dealer that I have on my account is going to be Lilium. I feel like she is just such a game changer. The most versatile nuker damage dealer in the entire game, in my opinion. Super good for speed farming dungeons. Super good for wrecking all of the PvP teams, regardless if we're talking about super tanky teams or not, okay? Very powerful. I would recommend pretty much every single one of you guys, if you're looking to build a damage dealer, if you just started playing or anything like that, and you got her, she should be your first priority in terms of skilling damage dealers. I'm not talking about supports and other stuff, right? I'm talking about damage dealers. This skill is absolutely crazy. I'm not going to read the skills and all that stuff, guys. But what I love about her is the fact that she can self-buff with increased attack, which will make your team more versatile, right? You have more synergy in the team. And because of it, you don't have to worry to bring in a different character that will give you the increased attack and all that stuff. She's going to be able to demolish pretty much anything. The HP seal is massive for PvP, not as important for PvE. The second skill deals a lot of damage too. And the first skill is good for PvP. Basically, the immunity, the Thermiter control immunity as well. I would recommend you to start with S3 and S2. And then if you really care about PvP, go into the S1 as well. But this is literally the only character I have fully maxed on my account. The next character that I think is the second best DPS in the game overall, I think, is Yali. That's a character that, as I've mentioned, I do not have available. Unfortunately, maybe I will get her at some point, but she can bring in a lot of damage. What I like about her, she is an LD unit, so you don't have to stress too much about affinities. She has the defense down on the third skill. She self-buffs with crit rate. Now, she is a lot of RNG. It's all about proccing those extra bow hits. If that doesn't happen, she's really not going to bring in a lot of damage. She doesn't self-buff like Lilium does, so you do need to bring in a different character for the increased attack. But she is a freaking monster. She has a chance to basically remove buffs with the A1, or actually still buff rather than remove it, which is even better. Overall, a very powerful character, right? We're going to have a look at some of the dungeon runs and stuff like that in a second. I think she's absolutely amazing too. Now, if you have Lilium, do you have to build Yali? Personally, I think that is not a necessity. But at the same time, it would be great. And once again, you kind of like want to max all of the skills. She does require the lattice, especially for the passive, to basically increase the chance for it to proc, for the follow-up rate attack, more damage, shorter cooldown, and that is amazing. She can do good AoE damage, and she can do good single target damage as well, right? Which is actually pretty damn good. If we are talking about the next damage dealer, personally, I'm kind of like in a bit of a pickle with these two, but Rosa just brings overall more single target damage. And considering that most of the enemies that we have in the game, including some of the bosses, even the cage rumble, and all that stuff, which is pretty important. It might not be an event that a lot of you guys like, but I think the cage rumble is pretty important too. And because of it, burst single target damage dealers are actually massive, and Rosa is one of them. Now, I've almost maxed my Siada as well because she's really powerful too. But Rosa kind of like needs lattice into all of her skills, even the S1, because this will be the skill that will join in with a follow-up attack, and that is massive. Now, she brings the decreased speed, she's self-buffed with crit rate too, she has this passive as well, and she's very powerful. If we're talking about Aurora, if we're talking about the Union boss, if we're talking about bosses in general, not as effective in a lot of PvE content. If we're talking about threshold bosses, if we're talking about Green Pursuit bosses, she's not going to be great everywhere, right? Like, she is amazing even in the Doki Doki. If you have no other options, you can use her. Not the best in there, but I feel like she's definitely in the top 5 as the best damage dealers in the game. Overall, utility-wise, right? I'm not talking about who has the highest damage output on a piece of paper or anything like that, because it needs to be relatable to the actual gameplay. And if it's not, well, what's the point of having that, right? So Rosa, really powerful. S3, the passive, and then the S1. I still haven't done the S1. I might do it at some point in the future, but it's really not a priority for me. That will up her damage quite a bit, okay? Because she gets some multipliers from here, but then is the chance of basically getting the thermometer, which is pretty irrelevant. So I would not go maximum. I would go up to level 4 on this skill just to get a higher damage multiplier. Talking about Siada. Now, Siada is kind of like one of a kind, and that is mainly because once you're stacking her passive enough and you're getting enough buffs on the team, she's only going to use the S3 skill, nothing else, okay? So when you are building Siada, the good thing about her is that you don't have to invest lattice into the S1, okay? You can completely ignore this because she's not really going to use it much. She's going to get a passive, she's going to stack all of the damage, and then she's going to do crazy AoE damage, and she's going to apply defense down, and she can just constantly spray this skill. Now, when we're talking about the initial impact as a hit, it's not the highest number in the game, but her having the ability to only use this skill is what makes her overall have the highest damage output in a long fight when you have a lot of AoE enemies, if that makes sense. She does make a lot of content like a walk in the park. If we're talking about Ember Track, the final boss right there, she's making it much easier with the AoE damage because you do have a lot of single target enemies in there. So do you need to invest in all of these characters? So let me just say it in the following way. I've built Siada for Aurora a while ago because I wasn't too happy with Rosa's performance. It was a bit too much RNG. I was not able to fit in a defense down in that team. But since I've got Lilium, I regret building Siada. Okay, and that's mainly because she's not going to be great in the Cage Rumble. She's not great in most of the boss fights like the Union boss and all that stuff. So if I would have the option to reset one of my damage dealers, she would be the one. And I would invest the lattice into Badsby instead. And that's the next character that I want to talk about, because Badsby, he is very unique as well. He's a new character. The banner is still active. It's basically about this unique passive that he has that will affect all of his skills. When you're going versus weak affinity, he's going to be able to absolutely demolish that enemy. So I really think that a fully maxed Badsby with crazy gear can one-shot Aurora. Okay, maybe he cannot, and he's just going to easily, quickly rotate to the second skill and take the boss down after. When we're talking about priorities in terms of skills and stuff, you want to have the S3 on Badsby up to level 4 at least. not necessarily the cooldown, unless you're planning to use him in the Cage Rumble whenever the event comes back. I think he's going to be crazy powerful versus Nico Nana there. We have the Nico Nana boss, right? So I'm looking to pair him with Rosa in that team and absolutely demolish that freaking boss, okay? Then you want to max the S1. You want to max this one because the level 5 on it will increase the final damage boost for each different debuff to 10% and 30% versus the weak affinity, which is what will give you that huge damage output, right? He's not very effective all around versus a lot of different bosses unless they are weak affinity to him. That's when he really shines, but he does the job better than no one else in Aurora. And Aurora being the most important dungeon that we are farming right now, I think is kind of like a no-brainer to invest in this character. But as I've mentioned, the game constantly evolves. Like, they brought Lilium. I regret building, as I've mentioned, Siada, because I don't really use her in a lot of content, and I can live without her, right? She is great for Doki Doki, though, if you don't have real mocha, right? Then they brought in Batsby, which is huge for Aurora. Good for Doki Doki, of course. Pretty good in there as well. Maybe even better than Siada, actually. And yeah, I wish I would have the lattice available for him. Talking about the next unit, guys, is going to be Deering, okay? And probably this is one of the very first damage dealers that you want to build when you start playing, because he's an SR unit, much easier to skill. It's a walk in the park to get that done, and then much easier to fully max his empowerment too. And he might not deal as much damage as Lilium, for example, but he's very close to it. I actually have a video comparing the two of them to kind of like get an idea of how much damage Lilium does versus Deering. And if you are putting them in the same team with the same gear, there's barely any difference. Like, you will see a small difference, but it's nothing that will make it or break it. Now, of course, the con with him is that he doesn't self-buff, but he carried my ass through the game, guys, like no other character that I have on this account, okay? He has been huge for my account, so I would strongly recommend you to build him up, even though he is not an SSR unit. And the main topic of the video was SSR damage dealers. I still want to bring him up because he's just too freaking good. Then, talking about the final one that I have on my list, guys, okay? And that is going to be Chloros, a character that I haven't built, haven't played much, but he does do some crazy work in the Cage Rumble, crazy work in the Union boss when you have the right boss to fight, and overall he can do a lot of damage. Now, he's really not on my high priority list to build or anything like that. I just don't feel like I necessarily need him, but he does the follow-up attacks. He does bring in a lot of burst damage overall, and it is worth building, but he does require a lot of lattice as well, like a lot of it. And most of the damage dealers kind of need all of the freaking lattice in the world to make them work, basically. Real Mocha, she's amazing when we're talking about Doki Doki. For a while, I really had a huge regret in building her and investing the lattice into this skill. But then it allows me to speed farm Doki Doki like there's no tomorrow. Just one tap, rinse, and repeat. Because she can do that. She can do crazy damage. And the splash is insane, one-shotting the rest, right? But she's not a top damage dealer. She shines in Doki Doki, but that's pretty much it. I'm not really seeing like crazy value out of it. Now, if we're quickly gonna have a look at some of the dungeon teams that are being used, I'm using Lilium in pretty much everything except Doki Doki, where I'm running Real Mocha. Everywhere else, I am running Lilium because she's that freaking powerful. Let's start with some of the Green Pursuit, and we're gonna check some of the best times, okay? And that should give you kind of like an idea. You see, we have Lilium, Deering. Deering is still really powerful. Lilium, freaking everywhere. I'm surprised that nobody tried using Batsby because I'm pretty convinced that Batsby can actually have a much better damage output in here. Surprisingly, nobody did it yet. I'm not sure why. If we're gonna move on to the next one, Sharon is a pain in the a very annoying boss. I don't really tend to farm this one, but Yali, Deering, Lilium are still the top goats for this boss, as you guys can probably notice. You see 3 DPS in this one, and get a job done. Messiah is a good damage dealer, but he's gonna drop quite a bit in value for PvE once you start building some of the other characters. Since I've built some of my other characters, I'm not really running Messiah anywhere in PvE. Great for PvP, he deals good damage, but he doesn't have a very high damage output. That's why I'm not even mentioning him. We're talking about the best of the best overall damage dealers. And you can see, Lilium, Yeli, Deering. Absolutely freaking goated characters. And they're all LD units. Shadow Flame Hoyan. More or less the same cup of tea. Once we're going to start hitting on the raw damage dealers, you have Lilium. You might still find a Deering or two around here, but it doesn't seem like it. If we're talking about Rangokutsu, more or less the same story. You have Yeli, which is really, really good in here. What I like about Yeli and Rangokutsu, so the boss has a mechanic. If you have multiple characters of the same elemental affinity, he's going to go crazy. He doesn't like that. So the best thing is to have one of each. Like that, basically you counter one of the mechanics. So running Yeli with a Lily, for example, is great. Running Deering with a Lily or Lilium with Lily is a bit more complicated because you have a higher chance to fail in here. But still very, very viable. These are literally the 3 DPS in here. And this they will perform really good versus other bosses too. Not just speed farming and stuff like that, right? If we're going to quickly go in the Threshold, in the Terrormaton, you're going to see the exact same story. Yes, you do have Shadow Sanya doing a bit of work in some different content, but it comes down to Deering, Lilium, Yeli, Deering. That just shows you that Chloros and other characters like that that have good damage output, Siada that has a good damage output and all that stuff, they're not really good in the general content. And that's where you should be running these characters the most. In Doki Doki, let's see what do we have right here. Real Mocha, as expected. This is literally very similar with what I'm running. Real Mocha just absolutely demolishes the enemies, right? So let's go back to clear times. There you go. Real Mocha, Real Mocha, Real Mocha. Because that's where she shines more than any other character. Having the ability to reset the cooldown of the third skill if she kills somebody without having Lily in the team is absolutely massive. I've seen some good teams as well with Batsby. I'm surprised that none of them are in here. Recent clear, anyone running a Batsby? We are running Yali, Siada, Rosa, they can work in here. Messiah can work in here as well. But I feel like out of all of them, Messiah might be like literally the weakest. Siada can literally dump these enemies pretty quick. Then, Inferno Aurora. You're going to see it right here. So, clear time. And we have Batsby still running the show. You have, of course, Deering. Really good too, right? It's not Lilium. Lilium is in the next spot. And then Lilium and Deering together. Lilium, Deering, freaking everywhere. Okay? That's how good they are. We see another Batsby right there. So, in my opinion, yes, these are the best damage dealers. Now, if we go to pridewin.gg, you're going to be able to see their testing that they've done right here. I have nothing against it or anything like that. I just don't really see this very relatable to the actual game. Like, Rahu dealing more damage than Lilium is not being used anywhere, right? And this is single target sustained in a long fight. He might be doing more damage in a long fight, but I haven't seen him being used in Cage Rumble or any of those bosses, right? So I'm not sure if he's going to do more than Lilium or Deering, okay? Because I think they're going to push in much higher numbers overall. Yeli, Rosa, Chloros seems to have the best damage output in a sustained battle. Now, I'm not sure what sustained means for them. A 5 minutes battle, a 10 minutes battle, or a 1 hour battle, right? Because That depends a lot too. You don't have 1 hour long fights in the game. You have 5 minutes, 10 minutes. AoE sustained, Siada will be at the top. As I've mentioned, Siada will be able to do crazy things. Badsby will be able to do crazy things as well with his AoE attacks. And the reason for it is that he gets the Thermitter, which enables him to quickly use his skills, okay? A3, S3, bang into the S2, and then once again, you're going to get that cooldown much faster. Chloros, Rosa, Yeli, single target burst. We have Yeli as the first one with the 3 arrows. Now, how many of you guys have Yeli and you've seen her missing that chance to proc the arrows multiple times back to back? Probably a lot of you guys. So Lilium kind of like becomes the GOAT. Deering is better than Hoyan because Hoyan is the stacks and it's very hard to keep her in a proper fight alive because she's dropping the HP and a lot of things going on with her. She is more of a PvP character though. But I still think Deering is better, right? AoE burst. You have Leon. She can do a lot of damage, actually. She has a very high damage output, thinking about it. But that's basically my opinion on the best damage dealers in Etheria Restart. That's how I would prioritize them. I would go Lilium. I would probably go Badsby or Yeli, depending on which ones I'm getting. Then I would go on a Rosa. While we're working on this, we can definitely work on characters like Deering. Phantom Theater, you get to 1000, you don't care about it. Infinity Train Siada is absolutely amazing, so you will need her in here. She's a special permit usually, which enables you to go to a maximum tier. And the Cage Rumble, Chloros, Badsby, Lilium, Yali, Rosa, Deering are the absolute freaking GOAT. Siada, unfortunately, sucks in there. Messiah sucks in there. And Rilmocha kind of sucks in there too. As usual, appreciate all of you guys watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Which one of them is your most favorite? Have you maxed all of the skills on one of your damage dealers on the account or not yet? Big shout out to Etheria Restart for sponsoring the video, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace.